think it's a little, the second section.
We should have it tomorrow.
Second resolution section is economy. The rest of it seems. This is oh wait, this is the water supply.
Oh, sorry.
Welcome back, Chief. JJ, welcome back. Sounds like you had a great adventure. Yes.
Sued currently for that, and in Georgia, his organizations were reprimanded for election interference.
Oh, great.
There will be more coming out.
Oh, yeah,
Nothing that likely made the
bribery.
difference, but all of them that are anti-democratic.
Yeah, bribery.
Jim's not gonna be here.
Right, Jim's
Which,
out.
that's
All right,
what
it's,
he says.
Yeah. Pennsylvania should be coming up too.
okay, it's 7:30, so I think we should go ahead and get going. So, Ms. Barber, you would call the roll.
Mr. Bracken,
Here.
Ms. Franklin,
Here.
Ms. French. Here. Ms. Ornelas,
Here.
Mr. Snavely,
Here.
Mayor Smith.
Here. All right, we will now do the Pledge of Allegiance if you would like to join us.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, may I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Vice Mayor French, second by Councilor Ornelas. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great. We will start with public participation tonight, and we'll go straight to public comments. So anyone wishing to address council about items that are not on the agenda or on the consent agenda, please come forward at this time and state your name and address for the record.
It's nice to see you all again. Linda Musmesi Kimball, 724 Melinda Drive. This past year of reports, accounts, and records have shown just how dangerous automated license plate readers are. Flock Safety's products have reportedly been used, misused, and abused in immigration enforcement, abortion monitoring, repeated incidents of stalking, and the flock cameras have experienced major cybersecurity breaches and error-prone technology that has led to real harm. Flock has rightfully earned the public's anger. After learning about the use of these AI cameras in their communities, and to date there are 115,490 of them in 6,000 communities in the country, thousands of people across the country have demanded that ALPRs be removed. In the growing movement to deflock, more than 87 communities have either canceled or deactivated their cameras from the surveillance technology. Garrett Langley, the CEO of Flock Safety, calls these groups of people terrorist communities. These terrorist communities use the limited democratic tools available to them to dismantle these surveillance cameras. Groups like the ACLU have attempted to create guardrails and limit the growth of surveillance apparatus through oversight models. But these policies have often proven inadequate to address the structural problem. The Electronic Frontier Foundation concludes from its year-long study of these ALPRs, quote, Flock Safety's surveillance infrastructure is not a neutral public safety tool. It's a system that enables and amplifies racist policing, threatens reproductive rights, and chills constitutionally protected speech. If we've learned anything in the past year about these ALPRs, it is that these are authoritarian tools. There's been a growing use of surveillance in our daily lives ever since 9/11. For some, this past year has exposed how the massive data production and collection by big tech and supported by the federal government has undermined our safety and security. Now, here in Oxford, the contract with Flock was signed without engaging Oxford's oversight process. Sure, there was the public comment period in the council meeting, but that's not community engagement. And 2 years ago, there were few widespread accounts of how the Flock surveillance cameras were being used and abused, and little thought about the surveillance network that was being built in the entire country. Do democracies need to surveil their residents? We have the Police Community Relations and Review Commission, and I believe we have city elected officials who still believe that the public has a role to play in defining public and community safety. So let's use our democratic tools and have a meaningful discussion about surveillance camera and what public safety will mean in our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Janice Dutton, and I live in Oxford. I've been pulled over a few times by the police in my years of driving. Once was due to a bulb out in my headlight, which was obviously a very old car. Another was due to my 17-year-old self accelerating out of a tight turn into a straightaway in order to build up enough speed in a residential street in my 66 VW Beetle to catch some air over a hump in the road. You know, the usual things people get pulled over for. My husband Tom and I were also pulled over twice. The first was in Santa Barbara, California, when we were driving back to college. The officer politely asked my bearded, long-haired boyfriend to step out of the vehicle and had him stand away from the car while the officer checked his license and registration. He came back and explained that the 63 VW Beetle with one mud flap matched the description of a suspicious vehicle. The mud flap was suspicious, I agree, and calmly sent us on our way. The second time was in Ohio, and after checking the paperwork, the officer told us our license plate was similar to the one on a stolen car and calmly sent us on our way. At no times were guns drawn or demands made to get on the ground. I'm not saying this is not at all aimed at the Oxford Police. I know they're not going to pull this stuff. So an article from the Institute of Justice, which is a good site to visit on this issue, documents on how both machine and human errors with Flock cameras and its data practices endanger, traumatize, and even incarcerates innocent people. It goes viral. So Flock claims that 93% plate capture accuracy rate. This is their claim. They also point out that their cameras scan 20 billion individual plates each month. And so that 7% inaccuracy rate means only a billion or so inaccurate readings a month. And nearly 2,000 during Miami's graduation weekend. So IJ, Institute for Justice, analyzed this case and noticed that officers did not realize their error until after they had drawn and pointed their guns at innocent people. Every one of those stops is a high-risk encounter where a wrong move, a misunderstanding, or a moment of fear can turn deadly, and I will say for the drivers or the police officers, it could turn dangerous for them too. So here's a few examples. 3 innocent passengers in a red Alfa Romeo, not a light green 63 VW, were arrested when Flock identified the wrong red car. 1 individual remained behind bars for nearly a month before officers realized their mistake. Officers misinterpreted ALPR data and detained an innocent woman at gunpoint, put her autistic child in the backseat of the police car, and impounded her vehicle for several weeks. Another time, after a Flock camera misread an O as a 0, officers detained 2 grandparents at gunpoint while their 3-year-old granddaughter watched from the car. A Colorado court entered multiple variations of the same license plate. We don't know if that's an O or a 0. Let's enter both. And a driver has been pulled over repeatedly in Colorado, and the system won't let him out at all. He's not guilty of anything. So also the ACLU is another really good place to look at lies. And one of the things they say is ultimately, reputable government should not do business with disreputable companies. While governments think long and hard about not using ALPRs, if local governments insist on doing so, at bare minimum, they should adopt strong guardrails governing the use. And they should refuse to partner with any company that regularly misleads the public, elected officials, and even its own customers. One story came across my, not Facebook feed, but came across my search of Dunwoody, Georgia, where the local Jewish athletic center was a private group. Their cameras interacted directly with the police cameras by contract. A flock executive got into the Dunwoody police cameras without asking permission, and were showing people the inside of the children's gymnasium and the swimming pool without anybody knowing. That's just creepy. So I'm really saying, you can trust our police, but do not trust that company, please. And one thing you can do, I know the decision's gonna be delayed, so it goes to the Police Community Relations and Review Commission. But there are a few things you can do in the meantime. You could just shut down all access or limit the number of agencies that have access. You can also open up the Flock portal. Been able to get to that on multiple cities. You can go on to the website, the police website, and see the portal and see who the relationship's with. You might be able to see why things were searched. I haven't been for a while, but it's not that hard to do. So
Janice.
transparency can happen before.
Sorry,
you-
that's 5 minutes, Janice.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you. I had a lot more.
Thank you, Janice.
There is a resolution on ACLU's website.
All right, is there anyone else who would like to address council tonight on items not on the agenda? All right. We will move on to the consent agenda. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Vice Mayor French, second by Councilor Franklin. Are there any items to be removed? All right, seeing none, all those in favor of the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great. All right, we will move on to resolutions. Ms. Barber, you may read the first resolution.
A resolution authorizing the city manager to submit a payment in the amount of $283,846 to the Ohio Water Development Authority to pay administrative charges for Cooperative Agreement Account 12025 to fund water treatment plant membrane softening improvements.
Motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Vice Mayor French, second by Councilor Snavely, and I'll go to Mr. Dreisbach.
As you know, the city is borrowing approximately $20 million to provide financing for our new softening plant and water treatment facility. With that, we are getting $4 million in principal forgiveness and a below-market financing rate of 2.51%. So those are all very attractive. We also received about $2.1 million in principal forgiveness for design and engineering of the plant. The fee we're asking for authority to pay tonight is basically a loan origination fee to the Ohio EPA that pays the administrative costs of the loan. So we ask for your approval to make that payment tonight. Be glad to answer any questions.
All right, let me see if there's anyone from the public that would like to address this resolution before council. All right, seeing none. Council questions, discussion?
Seems like a lot of money. Is that a percentage base?
Yes, they have a significant calculation how they arrive at that.
I bet they do.
Yeah, like when I worked for Miami, there was, I think, a 9 or 10% cap on admin charges based on the total project cost, so I'm sure it's similar. All right, any other questions? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that resolution carries. All right, Ms. Barber, you may read the next resolution.
A resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into the Butler County Mutual Police Aid Agreement.
Motion to adopt?
So moved.
Moved by Vice Mayor French,
Second.
second by Councilor Franklin. And we'll go to Chief Jones.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. This is a standard mutual aid agreement with Butler County agencies. It's come up in our Butler County Chiefs meeting for quite some time now. Some of the chiefs felt that we needed additional language that addressed some of the task forces that we operate with, like OVI Task Force, when we have other agencies in our city working with us. This would be essentially us signing agreements with all those other police agencies. It also addresses things like in-progress crime and, notifying the other agency that something's happening in their city. Typically, it probably applies more in like Hamilton and other cities where officers are traveling to court. And so if an Oxford officer was headed to court down in Hamilton and witnessed something occurring, they could stop and take some action until Hamilton Police goes. This is actually the normal way we practice, but there was they felt that the agreements, which were older, needed updated, and I think I've had the law director review this, and he didn't have any issues with it.
All right. Let me see if there's anyone from the public who would like to address this resolution before council. All right, seeing none, I think there are some council questions and discussion, so go ahead.
Okay, I'm wondering, what was in place before the 2022 agreement?
So before that, it was actually in the Butler County Emergency Management Agency, the Emergency Operations Plan, and it really only addressed disasters and calling police for that. And the holder of that was the Butler County EMA essentially, but it didn't address a lot of the normal law enforcement activities that we did. So in 2022, because of those missing issues, we signed an agreement. But then that was an agreement with each police agency signed an agreement with the sheriff's office, kind of giving us widespread. However, the concern that the police chiefs have is that this doesn't, that agreement didn't necessarily cover a Trenton officer coming to Oxford to help us for something, or an Oxford officer going to Westchester Township. It was really more of an agreement with us and the sheriff. Each agency and the sheriff, and they were the holder of the agreement. So it's just been a long debate and process at the chiefs meetings. Not everybody always agrees on it. And so one of the things that they talked about, a lot of agencies are doing off-duty details with each other. So Trenton officers working, say at Westchester Movie Theater, and that they had language in here about that, but that was taken out, and that's just like we have an individual agreement with Miami University Police. It spells out information sharing. We left that for individual agencies to do outside of this agreement.
Okay, so the 2022 agreement basically pulled out some of those issues, like officers assisting and actually defining what that role might be.
Yeah, I think it expanded upon what the very, very old appendix in the emergency operations plan. However, it didn't address everything, and that's what this agreement's trying to encompass. So,
Okay, I saw that under discussion, it is described that this Butler County Manual Aid for Law Enforcement Agreement supplements the existing agreement. And in looking at it, it basically replaces it.
essentially, it replaces
Right.
it, but it doesn't necessarily void that other agreement, which they're essentially the same. But this one has more information in it, but, because that other agreement is just individually with the sheriff. But, I mean, we could void that agreement if we wanted to. But
Okay, yeah, because I
don't think it's
see,
necessary.
I saw that the original 2022 agreement consisted of approximately 5 pages, including the resolution description And I believe the new, I guess revised agreement has about 11 pages or so, so it's increased quite a bit. And I happened to notice that instead of the numbering system that existed in the first agreement, they now have broken it down and sort of collapsed some of those items into one section, like section 1 or section 2 or section 3. And I noticed that under section 4 is where we have some new details described there, and I think you kind of alluded to that in your introduction about the specialized law enforcement operations and what that might entail. I mean, it leaves a lot to be imagined, I think, here. So in terms of the control of assisting agencies and the person who might be in the initiating agency who's in charge. So it has a lot of, it seems to me, a lot of gray area in terms of how that might happen. And the only reason I'm mentioning this is that it, I think, is calling me to ask for more information before I would vote affirmatively on this. And so I think that for me, anyway, to feel comfortable, I might want to have, to table this and have an executive session to discuss the potential implications of these specialized law enforcement operations and what they could potentially entail.
I think I could answer some of that right now.
Okay, yeah. that
So,
would-
for instance, the SWAT team, the START, Serious Traffic Crash Reconstruction Team, the OVI Task Force, the drone operations, K-9, we currently participate in all of those and operate with those other teams. So I think this is just given some language to protect us from liability. It's clarifying how we operate already. So for instance, we have members that serve on the Butler County Regional SWAT team. And if an incident happens in Liberty Township, they respond, and the incident commander would be someone from the sheriff's office, okay? But we still have a SWAT team commander, but overall, the highest ranking officer from the sheriff's office is in charge. If we call that SWAT team to Oxford and to Parkview Arms, as it happened recently, I didn't mean to bring that out, but that incident's coming up in my head. Then the SWAT team still has a commander that's still in charge of tactical forward operations, but the Oxford Police Department is then, the highest ranking officer on scene is then taking the incident command, kind of the overall incident command out of that. And so that's what this is trying to describe. If we initiate that SWAT call out, for instance, we remain in charge of the overall incident, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So, and then it happens more frequently with things like drones or canines. We often are called to assist out in other jurisdictions with our drone. And we go and we serve as a drone operator, but we don't take over we're not the initiating agency who then has command of the situation. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I'm just kind of describing how it currently happens.
Yeah, and under section 4, item C, it describes the assisting agency, which could be us potentially, may respond to the extent the requested specialized law enforcement operations are appropriate. So in that instance, let's say that you're in charge as the assisting agency, and you may call that what is occurring is not appropriate for our forces to be involved in. So in this particular circumstance, would you then potentially pull our officers off that particular raid or whatever
Yeah,
it is?
I'll give another real life example because I don't John. We don't currently have a K-9 officer, but oftentimes when we did, K-9 officers were called to different situations out in the county or another city. When that K-9 officer gets there and they say, we wanna do this, and it's not practical for that officer, the officer who's the expert, like the K-9 handler, to do that, or it's unsafe, or he doesn't wanna risk his dog doing that, then that's saying we don't have to do it, you know, just because somebody's commanding us. That's our resource. We still maintain control over that resource.
Okay.
So I think that's what this is saying. If it's appropriate under the circumstances, and to the extent that it's available. So if we don't have those resources available to us, you know, we're not gonna be held, you know, in contempt of this because we couldn't provide it. So I believe that's what that's referring to.
Okay, so if you potentially were uncomfortable with a certain situation, then you could make a call in another
Yes.
direction.
Yeah, the supervisor who was working, you know, because this probably happens at night, I'm probably sleeping, but to be
Okay.
honest with you. So.
All right, and also, in terms of the signatories on the document on the agreement, it does show, I tried to find the City of Oxford's original agreement. I did see the joint agreement between the City of Oxford and the university.
Yeah.
And so there were the signatures from the chief of Miami's police, you, and so I'm wondering, in our mutual agreement, did we have a similar list of all the city's police chiefs as this document has, rather than us having our own original agreement?
So, I mean, I did not, this document was created by someone in our association, and they listed all the police chiefs. Typically, when we have a mutual aid agreement, the city you know, council's passing a resolution for the city manager to sign, which is what I think you'll see in the individual. So I imagine, and you know, this is going to form and context, but I imagine what's gonna happen is, yes, once these agencies approve, we'll all sign it, but we will attach the council resolution with the city manager's signature. I've seen that done, because many of these other communities also have the same rules, where the police chief doesn't just sign it, they get a signature from their boss. So that's what I imagine is gonna happen here.
Okay,
But this is just the form that
yeah, it
the
just,
chief created.
it just seemed to me that it might clutter our agreement to have us attached to all these other,
Yeah, I'm not sure.
but
how
maybe
it's
that's
gonna
something
end
for
up,
Chris
because
to-
Not everybody's gonna end up signing it, I think, so, or they may not, I don't know.
okay. Okay, I think that answers the questions that I had. I'll rest for the moment unless I think of something else.
Yeah, going with that, the only things that were a little tricky to me is, in part 4, it mentions any other operation involving a task force, so that's not really defined. And then the initiating agency might not be the home agency. And so, some of your comments about maintaining control, though, put me a little more at ease, but those are the two aspects that I'm a little shaky on. If you could speak to either of those.
What, would you mind clarifying?
Yeah,
Which
sure.
agency might
So
not be
if
the
you go
home
to page
agency?
61,
Yeah,
and under Part A of Part 4,
okay,
at the end of that, it says, you know, SWAT, traffic, OVI, drone operations, K-9, and then any other operation involving a task force, which is very vague and open.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They intentionally, I think, left it, you know, open in case there's other specialized units, but for the most part, the ones we participate in are listed here. The only other one that's not listed here, but I think that's because it has its own separate agreement, is the Butler Undercover Regional Narcotics Task Force, which is through a separate for undercover drug investigations.
I'd imagine the public, somebody might worry that, like, included in that vague portion of the statement might include like some sort of immigration task
okay.
force. And then because the initiating agency might not be the home agency, that you might not have control over your own, within your own jurisdiction. And I'm speculating here, so.
I got you.
To add a question maybe onto your question, Jason, I think that we tend to see, like, we've seen the OVI task force come to us before, and it's like a pretty regular recurring thing. So if there were to be a task force that were new and created, it's possible we would still see it first, so that way that, like, we still have some modicum of control. It's not just a blank check to create new task forces.
Yeah, it's possible, but OVI task force comes to you strictly because we are the holder of that grant and we
Gotcha.
administer it. So,
Okay.
generally, like, I don't wanna say for sure, because like,
Sure.
I mean, in the past, we've created like a traffic task force with Township and Miami Police to go out and, address a special issue with safety. And that's actually not made at council level or even the city manager level.
For
That's-
sure.
That's in the charter, will say, like, the police chief has, that authority to do those type of things. But certainly, I think if it was a controversial, or a bigger thing, we would, my boss is sitting there.
Yeah, I think, yeah, thanks, that makes sense.
Let me see if I can add a little bit of clarity. This agreement is kind of intended to oversee task forces we already participate in. If they formed a new task force, say another agency decided to form an immigration task force, I think knowing council's wishes on that, we would probably opt not to participate, or at least we would be asked. So this one really is leaning into the SWAT team and the START team and canine operations, that we don't currently have. So that,
In the past, when I've bought mutual aid agreements to council, there's not been this much debate. I think some of this is stemming from concerns about, flock and immigration and
Yes.
those things. But that's not why this is coming before you right now. So I can assure you, like, we're not participating in something like that.
okay.
I'm curious, you mentioned not every police chief may sign this. So if a chief or city doesn't sign it, then they just can't benefit from this mutual aid agreement. They're opting out.
Yeah, I mean, they may be part of a different mutual aid agreement.
Okay.
If we didn't sign this, we're still part of the 2002 agreement.
Sure.
There's still, this higher revised code still addresses, disaster mutual aid, and we still have an agreement with Miami.
Okay, yeah. Thank you.
All right.
In other words, we could just stay with our agreement that we have already,
Probably.
the 22, unless we decide to cancel that one too. I'm not saying that we would, I'm just saying we could potentially just stay with the 22 agreement and not sign this one.
But it sounds like the 22 agreement is essentially creating a game of telephone. Sorry, JJ, I don't want to put words in your mouth, and so if this is incorrect, please correct me. The 2022 agreement essentially creates a game of nonstop telephone where everything has to run through the Butler County Sheriff's Office.
Yes.
And this allows those agencies to interconnect more directly, which, in my estimation, I think is a better
Step up,
deal,
yeah.
so that there's not an opportunity for miscommunication or misalignment. That's my
Yeah.
2 cents.
Yeah, it does seem to clarify the position of the sheriff's office, the county sheriff, in terms of their control over operating procedure. But as I mentioned in section 4, item C, that language kind of softens that for me, but I just wanted some clarification on that, in addition to what Jason just brought up.
I encourage us to support this. I think that this is better than having each agency in the 22 agreement, having an agreement with the sheriff, and this is having agreement with one another. And I think that's an improvement. And I'm glad it's spelled out as well as it is. It was interesting reading.
And just like the other agreements, we could leave this one if we all agreed we needed to do that as well, right?
Yeah, you could always get out if you want.
All right. You ready to vote?
Okay.
All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. That resolution is adopted. We will move on to ordinances. And Ms. Barber, you may read the first ordinance.
An ordinance repealing Code Section 35103, prohibited standing or parking places, and adopting new Section 35103, prohibited standing or parking places.
All right, I'll turn this over to Chief Jones.
Yes, so this is a parking issue that's come up, and over the last couple of years, we've noticed it more and more. And I've got some pictures I can show you to describe it, but essentially, it's clarifying our language to address problems where cars park in that driveway apron between the sidewalk and the street. So if you go in the Mile Square, you'll see this a lot. And by adding the language to the language that I'm proposing to the ordinance, it just simply clarifies something. I believe that in the past, this has been addressed by the same section, but over time, the enforcement of it has waned, and now officers are reluctant to enforce this, just saying you're blocking a driveway. So what's happening is, this is one example of a car that it's actually partially blocking the sidewalk there, just maybe a little bit, but they're trying to squeeze these cars in. So part of the tire is on the street, the back half's hanging out in the street, and part of it's on the sidewalk. Here's another example of it. We see this much more often. I think the parking pressure has just increased there. Here's an example, getting a little more creative, of parallel parking over across the driveway apron. Again, like, when you read the section 35103 and you look for something that specifically says this, you could say that blocking a driveway, well, it's their own driveway, and so that's the argument that we struggle with this. So Lieutenant Price did some research and came up with this language to add. Here they really maximized it.
Oh, boy.
Oh, my gosh.
We squeezed it in, and so that the dark colored car there is not in a parking space either. It's you're doubling up on the driveway in the street. So we believe that causes traffic hazards as far as visibility and obstructions. It leads to the sidewalk being blocked more often. It makes it more difficult for emergency responders to get to that address or have a place to pull in an emergency. So that's why the highlighted area there is what we're wanting to add. So that's section 35103, prohibited parking or standing places, which has many subsections. It's kind of a catch-all for parking. But in the subsection B, you can see the current language just says you can't park in front of a public or a private driveway or within 3 feet of either side of the entrance to said public or private driveway. And by adding the language, including the driveway apron area that is between the sidewalk and the street, which would prevent ingress and egress of the driveway. So that's what it's designed to address. We took this to OPTAB. However, OPTAB didn't have a quorum, so they couldn't vote on any sort of recommendations, but they seem generally understanding of the intent of the ordinance.
All right.
Is there any questions you have?
Let me see if there's anyone from the public that would like to address this ordinance before council.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Janice Stetton again. Thank you. Thank you. One of the issues in the Mile Square is the increasing density. And I have cars parking in front of my driveway, well, last year a lot. And one day I saw one and I waited till 1 p.m. to knock on the door across the street, wake up the young man in his hangover to come over and move his car so I could get out of my driveway. So, anyway, and the other ones where they're actually parking in the apron. So, thank you. I just want to say thank you. And please do this.
Any council questions? Go ahead, Bill.
So with the wording of which would prevent the ingress and egress, does that provide a defense for somebody parking that's not like the one you showed which I've seen, where they're parking in the tree lawn,
Yeah.
but it's not at the driveway, it's in the middle of the block in front of the house?
So I think you could argue that prevents the ingress and the egress of the driveway because, you know, if you're in that, you can't get out, right? It's in the street. You're saying, like those pictures I showed you?
Well, if they drive up onto the tree lawn,
Well, if it's on the tree lawn, there's.
it's probably on the sidewalk.
There's another section that addresses
Yeah.
the tree
Yes.
lawn.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
However, what they're doing is avoiding that section by parking on a driveway apron.
Okay.
So I'll throw this out there, like this, by passing this ordinance, it addresses some of the, like I said, I see it mostly kind of in the mile square where the pressure's great. There are places out on Oxford Riley where you see cars doing that as well. Now, is that a problem with that big long street lawn? I don't know, but you would be saying that they couldn't do that either. So I think it could, I don't know how to split hairs on that, other than using discretion. But that would, I think you know what I'm referring to, where they park between the sidewalk and Oxford Riley Road.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I really see it as a problem. However, you know, it's in a public right of way. It's in the place
Yeah.
where we remove sign from the public right of way.
Yep.
Yet you can put a car in there. It doesn't make sense to me, so,
Doesn't make sense to me.
yeah, so,
I'm with you.
okay.
All right, any other questions? Okay, this is a first reading, so we will see this, the first meeting in August. We will move on to second readings. Ms. Barber, you may read the first, second reading.
An ordinance providing for the submission to the electorate of amendments to the Charter of the City of Oxford, Ohio, and to place the same on the ballot at the general election November 3rd, 2026.
Motion to adopt,
So moved.
moved by Vice Mayor French,
Second.
second by Councilor Franklin. And we'll go to Mr. Elliott.
Thank you. So at our last council meeting, the 8 recommended charter changes were discussed, and it was decided that the recommendation number 1, to remove the 3 dwelling unit prohibition in the remaining mile square, should be a separate issue for the electorate to decide. Also, the recommendation number 3, regarding the publication of ordinances, should not be changed. So I've incorporated these 2 changes by providing a revised ordinance with the 6 recommendations and a separate ordinance for the removal of the 3 dwelling unit prohibition in the remaining mile square. And so this first one is with the 6 amendments, and the next one is the separate amendment for the 3 dwelling unit prohibition. And I'd be glad to answer any questions you have.
All right, let me see if there's anyone from the public that would like to address this ordinance before council.
That's
The Mile Square one is the next one.
Hi there, Kevin McKeon, 2126 Dana Drive. Welcome back in here. I miss this sometimes, not much. I was on the Charter Review Commission. I was happy to serve and put this in place. I do want to express my personal disappointment of removing the 3 unit out as a separate thing. I don't believe zoning belongs in our charter. It belongs in our zoning code. If that stays in place, if it fails to pass, Clarence Place could be built in the mile square, an excellent opportunity for affordable housing. And it's only a couple blocks from the mile square. So I'd like that to be taken into consideration. Thank you all.
Thank you. Council questions or discussion?
I think first I want to thank the members of the Charter Review Commission. It's not an easy job, and there's a lot of stuff that had to be cleaned up, and I think that this ordinance and the 6 items that are represented here are very clear and needed to be taken care of, and I'm glad to see them there. So I'm happy to support this ordinance.
Anything else?
I think that, I'm just wondering, is there a space where the actual section is defined. So will there be like, because out of context, unless you have a copy of the charter, you can't really tell, okay, yeah, I'm gonna be removing section 2 regarding utility users. That might not make sense to some people, so I'm just wondering if the actual description within that
You
particular.
mean beyond what's
Yes.
before
because
us?
Yes, because it says, shall the car.
Because we have
charter-"
that starting on page 73.
Yeah, we have it.
Yeah. So
But-
you're asking, will the public
Will
have
the
it?
public have it? Like,
Gotcha.
will the charter be in that voting booth with them in the document? Because if you look at it, out of context, it doesn't make sense, so, just curious.
Well, we will be putting on our website this information, which will have the charter that will show the amendments that, they'll either be added or language will be struck out, so they'll have access to that. And they'll, so we'll have that information out there. And as I said earlier, I'll probably be making the rounds among several organizations talking about this and have specific information. But no, as I understand it, they will not have that, all that wording in the voting booth with them. But, we'll be, if this is adopted tonight, we'll submit it to the Butler County Board of Elections, and hopefully they'll approve it and assign it an issue number, and then we can start publicizing it. So, yes, it'll just be this language, which was what we had before.
I'm just concerned with those individuals who do not have internet or access to a computer in their homes, who have spoken with me about sometimes it's hard for them to get information because they don't go online. And so if we just have it online, it might be difficult for people. It
Yeah.
seems like it would be an easy thing to just add whatever it is that we're referring to with each item.
Well, it is included, in the packet, but, if you go down through, the first one is removing section 212. So that's pretty clear, dealing with the utility users liable for their own uses and not others. This was a citizen-initiated change, so we're talking about removing that. We're going to revise the section on the initiative and referendum, and all we're doing is say that it has to be filed with the city clerk and not the city auditor. And of course, the reason is we don't have a city auditor in our form of government. The third one has to deal with the residency of the city manager, and this gives the city council the option of hiring a city manager outside the city. The fourth one is just removing the reference to the Civil Service Commission, which we don't have, and we insert the Personnel Appeals Board. This was missed when we did the charter amendments 10 years ago. And the fifth one is we're changing the process and replacing it with a new one.
Yeah, that's vague.
Yeah,
That doesn't say what that process is about.
yeah, that's true. That's true. And
Yeah.
it has
All the
to-
rest kind of do. I mean, you can find it if you
Yes.
read in here, but like Roxanne said, if you don't have that, if you don't know what it is, then how would
Yeah.
you make sense of number 5?
Well,
Something to.
maybe we add the words recall in there, because that's what we're doing, is we're revising the recall provision, which we've never utilized, to my knowledge, in the city of
Right.
Oxford, but we could. So
I think
maybe
that would
if you
be
wanted to amend it to put revising section 907, recall, to remove existing wording and replacing with a new process, I think that might satisfy your concern there. And then the section 1001, we're just removing it completely. And as we said, there's a statutory process basically that allows us to provide insurance coverage rather than a bond. And this would basically make certain that the finance director and assistant finance director, who are the only two employees that have bonds, would prevent them from being personally liable for any claim, if you will, that's paid by our bonding company that might come back on them for that monies.
Yeah, oh, I understand all of those. I'm just concerned for that individual who may go into the voting booth and not have that full understanding of where it comes from. They might want to know the details
Yeah, yeah.
a little bit. I mean, it just doesn't seem like it would be that much to add it for each one of those things. But
Is it possible, I know that sometimes issues have a lot of verbiage that comes with them. Is it possible to put maybe the paragraph
yeah, that's all.
and with the strikeout just that is relevant to that particular point?
I mean, is this designating the exact wording that's going to be on the ballot? I
Yeah,
assumed it would be summarized.
well, that's what I'm asking, basically.
Yeah, it does. You know, and I guess I followed the process that we used the last time. And, you know, we're under the gun to get these to the Board of Elections so that they can be on the ballot.
Well, I think since we've got it in this other part, that would be a pretty easy thing to put under each one. In bold, the changes, strike out what's being deleted. That's just an idea.
Yeah. It seems it might be easier, you might have a better chance of getting certain things passed. If a person disagrees with one of those three items, the whole thing will fail versus separating each one out and having each item to vote on. Let's say someone disagrees with three.
Yeah, I mean, that was with speaking for the Charter Commission, I think as chair, I have the power to do that. That was what we had talked about, and that was originally why we had presented all of them as one bundle, and then, you know, due to public comment and council comment, making that decision that of those that are the most likely to have questions or not pass, it's why we pulled that one out last week. I think that asking, voter behavior is always really interesting. My concern is if we unbundle all of them and then increase the amount of text for all of them, that we're going to get some fatigue there. I feel good about our recommendation to keep the bundling as is. I do hear what you're saying, though, about maybe adding some of that additional language, but my concern is, again, when you get some of those issues that are so long that people get lost in the sauce and they don't read them anyways. So, Doug, I like your recommendation of going to the different organizations. I also wonder if Roxanne, noting the woman who spoke at the meeting we were at last week, that I don't have internet access, it's hard for me to be informed about what's happening in the city. Heather, not to make your life more difficult, but if we're gonna be posting stuff in three places now anyways, are there places like the library or the police station where we can be a little bit more expansive in the information that's available to the public? So if a voter really does want to seek out that information and be informed, we're giving them a place to do so. And then circling all the way back to the idea of the amendment, Doug, I think with you're suggesting adding the language around, particularly that recall.
Just the one for the recall, but what
Yeah.
I can offer, and sorry I didn't bring my notebook with me, but I think we are bound to publish it in the newspaper, and what we can do is add those paragraphs that are affected beyond this language here, you know, and hopefully voters will read it either in the newspaper or at the library where it's posted, or at the city municipal building where it's posted, or on the internet. You know, there'll be plenty of opportunities if they so choose, but I believe we published them the last time, and even if we're not required to, we will do that.
Yeah, I think it would
That's what
help.
I was talking about.
Yeah.
For clarification, I think it would help. Because if I were the person voting, and because I tried to put myself in that situation.
Sure.
If I saw this on the ballot, I'm like, well, that one sounds okay, but where is that coming from? What is it?
Yeah, good point.
The law director just showed me another one that was, and it had, in another community,
See if you get a sense of.
but it had the strikeouts and everything
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think we did that the last time.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
makes
I
it
did not bring
easy.
my notebook with me that had that, so I'm sorry.
And that
But we will
resolves
do
your
that.
problem.
Yeah, that helps.
Yeah, yeah.
Does
Good-
it have to be
good
the
point.
exact language? Can we just explicitly approve a summary of each one of these to whatever extent we deem reasonable? Because also, Adding paragraphs and legalese doesn't help the public very much at all, even when you provide it. They get lost almost instantly because of the wording.
Well, what I'm suggesting is in your packet, you have a copy of the charter, and the sections that are affected either show language that has been added and language that has been unstruck. So we will put those sections in there. I mean, there are many sections that are not affected. We're
Right.
only talking about 7 changes.
Right.
Is that-
That
That's
would
great.
be, that's good.
Okay.
I think that would help.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So we're good. We don't need motions, we don't need edits. we
Well,
don't
if you
need-
want to add recall to the one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
You do. And that's, what section is that?
So I move that we add recall to number 5.
I second that motion.
All right. All those in favor of making that amendment to number 5, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we'll do that. All right, now we will do a roll call on the ordinance overall. Okay.
Mr. Bracken,
Yes.
Ms. Franklin,
Yes.
Ms. French,
Yes.
Ms. Ornelas,
Yes.
Mr. Snavely,
Yes.
Mayor Smith.
Yes. Okay, we will move on to our second reading. You may read that whenever you're ready.
An ordinance providing the submission to the electorate of an amendment to the Charter of the City of Oxford, Ohio, and to place the same on the ballot at the general election, November 3rd, 2026.
Motion to adopt.
So moved.
Second?
Moved by Vice Mayor French, second by Councilor Nellis. We'll go back to Mr. Elliott.
Sure. So as I said earlier, this is the elimination of the 3 dwelling unit prohibition in the remaining mile square. And as council requested, this be a separate ordinance, a separate amendment that would appear on the ballot. And so that's what I've done.
All right, is there anyone from the public who would like to address this ordinance before council?
Janice Dutton again. Would you all please speak into your microphones, especially when the air conditioning goes on? It's really hard to hear even with my AirPods. Also, I think you should have unbundled all of them because I think you just forced me to vote no when I agreed with some of the ones you just read. So the staff report, and also the gentleman before me, said that zoning and variances are a better way to manage density in the mile square instead of charter. The reason the charter was put in is because zoning and variances were crap. In fact, I even say that statement, that it is easier, is, excuse my language, bullshit, if it's one word or two. Also, the argument that if we allow more density in the mile square, it'll end up in affordable housing or create more affordable housing elsewhere. This was my husband's field, and I know he's passed, but I'm really, really, really good friends with scholars and advocates in this field. And there's no proof of that anywhere, because you know darn well it's going to become student housing. And the other thing that happens too often is that it's really easy. Your next round through the comprehensive plan will rezoning everything. And variances are way too easy to get in this community. You can get one by threatening to sue. You can get one because I'm going to make more money. And it used to be that was illegal in our code. It wasn't to maximize profits, it was for reasonable use. If you claim you're for affordable housing, I can point to at least one property that was a size to build a single-family house, 3 bedrooms, bathroom and a half. But it got so many variances, front yard, side yards, backyard, in order to build a 4-bedroom, 4-bathroom house that was not affordable for anybody. So to say that this furthers affordable housing, that's crap. To say that zoning and variances will handle it, we've got a long history of that being crap. And so I encourage you to not even put this one on the ballot because people don't really understand the issue. Nor do most of them live in the mile square. And this is far more complicated than the ballot language with something crossed out. So, thank you.
Thank you. Council discussion and questions?
Yeah. So, to respond to my friend Kevin, the reason we pulled it out was exactly what you're seeing, is that it is so controversial that in fact it could wipe out all of the amendments, and that's why it's pulled out. Now, having said that, I will be voting against this one for exactly the reasons that Janice so eloquently articulated. I was here when that first went on the ballot. And the reason it went on the ballot was that the citizens did not trust the council to change the zoning laws, because we can do that in 2 meetings. We can change zoning. You can't change the charter in 2 meetings. And the fear was that the mile square would turn into a bunch of apartment complexes and not the little town that we have. Now, granted, students have moved into a lot of those houses, but to the extent that maybe enrollment goes down, some of those houses might go back to families someday. We hope so. The fund that we have going for housing has the potential to buy a house and turn it back into one that people can live in, such as Chantel Ragu lives in one of those houses that was rescued. So I think we have to be really careful here. I urge my colleagues to vote no on this so that this isn't even on the ballot, because it indicates that we think it's a good idea, and I do not think it's a good idea. I understand the argument why it might be good to just let it work with zoning decisions and so forth. I get that, I understand that. I just don't trust what a future council might do in 2 meetings and destroy what we have in our community. So to prevent the destruction of our community, I urge you to vote no.
My turn? It is not bullshit. Restrictive zoning is the #1 thing that has led to a housing crisis, along with NIMBYism. And I do understand the hesitance to open up the entire mile square, which is why I wish we got another shot at this so we could designate areas that make sense, like Mr. Meehan was suggesting, that could definitely help housing, and not the whole thing, because we do want to keep those homes as is. This is sadly a binary situation that is not very good. But we do have an incredible team working on zoning. We have incredible city management staff, and we're making decisions that I think are very responsible. I will also say it's, students have to live somewhere. Spreading them out takes up more housing, not less. So we can't just be, if they build something, it's going to student housing. If you have dense student housing, you have more area open to single-family homes and other affordable housing options. It's not so simple as students got it. Students have to get it. They have to live someplace, just like everybody else. The market goes down as you fill in spots and opens up elsewhere. Yeah, I do. Thanks. Yeah, I don't think you should yell out. I didn't speak over you when you were up there, and I wanted to. Yeah, so I'm in favor of this, and I hope it gets approved, but I would like instead, if it was an option, which I don't think it is, to amend it to a specific area that makes sense and not the entire mile square.
It seems to me that that's something that could be done in the future. And when we have time to actually think about it, it's not something that we should amend on the fly, certainly. But I don't think this is the time to do it carte blanche and take away all of the protections that are there that were approved by the citizens of the city by a pretty significant margin.
If I could respond to that, I would say if it's amount of time to fix it, we have that time, because as you mentioned, we trust the current council and city management. It's only in the future, a long ways off, that we would have to be concerned about
Well, we could
that.
take it up again later.
I'd
I don't think
rather-
we have time before the election to do it.
To make that adjustment, but if this ends up being approved, then we can do what we need to do, and if we need to lock it down later, we have that option. If time's the,
I disagree.
I mean, how
I
soon do you
respect
think?
you and disagree with you.
Of course, that's. I mean, how much time would we expect a new council to come in here, go a totally different direction, and wipe out the mile square? I don't think that's very likely. And in the meantime, we have a council and management that really cares about housing because there's a national and local housing crisis. It's like our biggest problem in the country, outside of federal issues I won't get into, that could possibly help address some of that. I would like to address that. It's my number one cause on council. Like, literally, I ran on it, I talk about it, I'm in all those meetings because I care about it. It's really important, and this might cut off some of our options for trying to address that.
I think if my perspective is, I hear both sides here. I think where I'm sitting is the charter feels like a blunt instrument, and giving Sam's team a more fine-pointed option makes me, I feel better if we want to truly empower our city development team and put weight behind the work that we're doing to rewrite the zoning code. Removing this from the charter now makes sense to me. I don't want to put it on citizens to then have to pull together another initiative to put on the ballot. But I think when we think about when we could address this again in the future, the next Charter Review Commission isn't for another 10 years. So if we say, well, I don't want to change it now, let's revisit it in 10 years, the cycle there is.
I'm not suggesting that we wait 10 years. I'm suggesting what we know is we have to review it at least every 10 years. A change can be made interim to that. So it could be made in January.
Yeah, let me.
Chris has something.
All right, well, so what the charter says is that you must have a charter review every 10 years. There's nothing that prevents charter review at any time you want to do it. The charter may be amended as provided, et cetera, by submission of a proposed amendment to the electors. It's either done by the citizens or by council. So you have a third option. So it's not just the binary one that as you're discussing it now.
And what is the third option exactly?
Well, you can
say-
propose a charter amendment, and it can be on the
Charter
May
amendment.
primary.
Yeah,
Could be at a different election.
at a different election.
Or you can even have a special election, but that costs money.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I would
yeah.
recommend you do it at the
You
primary.
could do it for the May primary, next May.
Let me ask something else. I would just want to make sure Mr. Perry doesn't have any comments that he'd like to join in. Come on up.
Well, I just wanted to thank the Charter Review Commission for moving this forward, and I understand there's differences of opinion, but as Community Development Director, it is an obstacle, this restriction. And even if you look at what happened in the Uptown District in 2008, you can see the reinvestment that occurred. And I think that's evidence that the development standards, the Historic District Commission, all the different layers of regulations and review bodies resulted in a removal for restriction in that 8-block area that allowed something that's beautiful to happen. And no, not everything worked out perfectly, but there was a lot of reinvestment that happened. And I think by having this obstacle in place, I hope the community can see that that allows adaptability and allows us to pivot. And if we wait for another election, then we might miss opportunities. Just taking an example, Fox and Hounds Apartments or Oxford Square, some of these older apartment buildings, if they wanted to voluntarily rebuild them in the place where they are, they would not be able to do that. And so while we don't necessarily think about those are within the restricted area. And so I think Mr. Bracken has a good point. Yes, in an ideal situation, maybe we would have taken a closer look at where that restriction could be removed, where it's more likely for redevelopment to happen. That's not what you have in front of you. So thank you for at least keeping it, or potentially keeping it on the ballot. So I would support that. I think it's a good thing. And I think it will bring attention to this issue of rewriting the zoning code, just the timing of it. We're going to have a draft done by the beginning of September, which is well ahead of the election. That will show the voters that what tools we have in place. So I think that will help. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Berry.
My husband and I were in Chicago last week, and so when we were driving, we were listening to some audiobooks, and we started listening to this book called Abundance by Ezra Klein. But one of the points he makes in the book, we haven't finished it, is that why is it that liberal towns or liberal cities that espouse all of these values of housing and affordability tend to be the least affordable places for people to live? And one of the reasons is that there are so many restrictions for reasons like charm and, keeping the history and historic districts are important, but that we block ourselves out of actually leaning into the values that many of us claim to believe in. So I'm willing to take a chance on this, and I understand both sides of the argument. When my husband and I were looking to purchase a home, we wanted to stay in the Mile Square, and everything that we looked at was either it was priced for rental income, it was chopped up in so many pieces that we weren't going to live in it as a couple, and so we love our home now, but we were hoping to live in the Mile Square and couldn't. But I think that more density and more housing is a benefit and leans into the values we've been talking about. So I'm going to support this. I understand the arguments against it respectfully.
I respect you, Amber. I would point out, I understand the argument that was made by Sam. And there was a lot of investment, and it was the right thing to do to exclude the uptown area from that restriction. That made sense. It may also make sense to exclude some other area, maybe close to campus. But to open it wide open means that you're going to have a lot of pressure coming to a lot of different people to rezone things, R4, in different parts of the city. We already had one that was going to be where Shade Makers is, that they wanted to tear out all those homes and put in a large strip of, like, I don't know how many, 23 different apartments in a building, which would have ruined that area, in my opinion. So I just think you have to be really careful about going in and saying, yeah, the whole thing's done, because a later council won't have that restriction and may not think about the fact. I've been around for a while, and I've seen councils that were good and would uphold the nature of the Mile Square, and those that would trash it easily. Board of Zoning Appeals, I think the one we have now is pretty good. They're very thoughtful, they're deliberative, they go through the process, and they follow the code. I've seen previous BZAs that would basically, if you ask for it, they give it to you. And if you could make money off of it, all the better. And so then you start, and it's a lot easier to do when it's not in the charter. It's simple to do. It's so easy to do, why would you not do it? Because that's where you're going to make the most money, and you're not going to make it money, I don't think. You're not going to make housing for residents who are lacking housing. You're only going to be making more housing for students. I just don't think it's a really good idea. I appreciate Jason's arguments, and I do. We've talked, and so I get it. I just disagree. And I think that taking the lid off of it will cause more problems than it's worth. And I think that we need to respect the citizens who voted, and I think it was about 60% for this particular amendment, for that particular reason.
Well, this would give them the chance to vote again on that. And I would say that, yes, I respect you, I know where you're coming from. But it is the case that everybody who lives here needs a place to stay, and when you open up more housing, no matter who you give it to, unless it's at the very, very upper end, there's people that fill in behind it because spaces open up. And then also, it doesn't just open everything up, because again, there's still zoning, there's still council, there's still management. It's not, it's not a single layer, there's multiple layers there. That's where I stand.
All right. This is a tough one because I trust Sam and Zach and I trust their process, and I've been involved with them for almost 20 years. But I hear what Bill's saying. I've known property owners in town who potentially could be salivating at this, but I also know it's not a cheap process, that if you're going to buy up, say, 3 lots and you're going to pay current prices for those, that it's not something you would enter into potentially lightly. I also know there's been a lot of investment in the past 5 to 10 years in one-upsmanship between who can gentrify their houses the most to get the most revenue from them, and that has also increased property value. So I think I'm gonna go with yes on this and let the voters decide, and trust in the zoning process. But I hear everything everybody has said, including Janice. All right? Are we ready to vote? All right. Call the roll, Ms. Barber.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Ms. French?
Yes.
Ms. Ornelas?
Yes.
Mr. Snavely?
No.
Mr. Bracken?
Yes.
Mayor Smith?
Yes. That ordinance is adopted. We will move on to our second reading. If you would like to read that, Ms. Barber.
An ordinance authorizing the city manager to enter into an easement agreement with the Board of Education of the Talawanda Local School District for the planned construction of a passenger rail platform.
Motion to adopt.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Vice Mayor French, second by Councilor Franklin, and we'll go to Mr. Dreisbach.
Thank you. Again, this gets the land and easement that we need for the proposed Amtrak station. And thanks again to Ms. Green to working out the agreement with Talawanda. So no changes from the first reading.
All right. Is there anyone from the public who would like to address this ordinance before council? All right, seeing none. Any council questions or discussion?
Just a comment that I was able to participate as a member of the public at the PACO meeting where this area was described in a lot more detail than I had seen previously, and it's exciting, I think. And this leads down, so it really does need our approval because they changed the grade as it goes down to the railroad platform. And I think the mural that they will put on the side will be very attractive.
Excellent.
I just want to thank the Board of Education, the school district, sorry, for partnering with the city on this.
Great. All right, Ms. Barber, you call the roll.
Ms. French?
Yes.
Ms. Ornelas?
Yes.
Mr. Snavely?
Yes.
Mr. Bracken?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Mayor Smith?
Yes. All right, that ordinance is adopted. We will move on to our second reading of the night.
An ordinance authorizing the city manager to enter into an easement agreement with Southwestern Ohio Seniors Services Incorporated, a nonprofit Ohio corporation now known as Maple Knoll Communities Incorporated, for the purpose of an easement for the construction of the Oxford Area Trail System Phase 6.
Motion to adopt.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Vice Mayor French, second by Councilor Snavely. We'll come back to Mr. Dreisbach.
Again, this is a housekeeping item, and thanks to the Knolls of Oxford to provide this easement from Fairfield to Contreras Road. This is a housekeeping item, as I said, just to get this into our Oxford Book of Codified Ordinances. So no changes from the first reading.
All right. Is there anyone from the public who would like to address this ordinance before council? All right, seeing none, any council questions or discussion? All right, Ms. Barber, you may call the roll.
Ms. Ornelas?
Yes.
Mr. Snavely?
Yes.
Mr. Bracken?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Ms. French?
Yes.
Mayor Smith?
Yes. All right, we'll move on to our fifth ordinance whenever you're ready.
An ordinance authorizing the city manager to enter into an easement agreement with Clausen Properties One LLC for the purpose of an easement for the construction of the Oxford Area Trail System Phase 5.
Motion to adopt.
So moved.
Second?
Moved by Vice Mayor French, second by Counselor Snavely, and back to Mr. Dreisbach.
Again, a housekeeping item to get this codified in our ordinances. No changes from first reading.
All right, is there anyone from the public who would like to address this ordinance before council? All right, seeing none, any council questions or discussion?
Just want to thank the Clausens for working with the city on this. And I had one question, a temporary and a permanent easement. So what's the temporary easement?
That was just needed during construction. We needed
Got it.
a little bit wider area.
Okay,
And then once that was seeded, the temporary easement goes away.
okay, thank you.
All right, Ms. Barber, you may call the roll.
Mr. Snavely?
Yes.
Mr. Bracken?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Ms. French?
Yes.
Ms. Ornelas?
Yes.
Mayor Smith?
Yes. All right. We will move on to our sixth ordinance whenever you're ready.
An ordinance to appropriate certain real property interest owned by Ledger LLC with interest by others for the BUT Oxford Amtrak Station project.
Motion to adopt.
So moved.
Second?
Moved by Vice Mayor French, second by Counselor Snavely. Mr. Dreisbach.
No changes from first reading.
Okay. Is there anyone from the public who would like to address this ordinance before council? All right. Seeing none, any council questions or discussion? All right, may call the roll.
I have a
Oh.
question.
Yes.
So were the owners of this property apprised that this is coming up on the agenda?
Yes, we've had several meetings with them. and,
Yeah.
Ms. Green has emailed them reinforcing everything that the city will do to work with them. And we'll continue to try to work with them to get an
That's good.
agreement.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think it's also significant that they were not here to argue against it. And I urge us to support it.
Well, in addition, they've hired counsel, Richard Glazer. I've been talking to him. He's aware of what's going on, and he has a significant experience in this area of law. And I'll just say, this may go farther than we would like, but part of it has to do with the process. Mediation is required if we have to go to an appropriation. And it may get there, but that is not indicative of something that's truly adversarial either. It's just a following process.
All right. You may call the roll.
Mr. Bracken?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Ms. French?
Yes.
Ms. Ornelas?
Yes.
Mr. Snavely?
Yes.
Mayor Smith?
Yes. That ordinance is adopted. We will move on to our seventh and final ordinance tonight, whenever you're ready.
An ordinance amending ordinance number 3844, supplemental budget ordinance number 4, to make supplemental appropriations for fiscal year 2026.
Motion to adopt.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Vice Mayor French, second by Councilor Franklin, and we will go to Ms. Reitner.
Good evening. I am bringing an additional item for the second reading, and that is to appropriate the $50,000 from the opioid settlement funds to provide funding for the Oxford Cold Shelter.
Is there anyone from the public who would like to address this ordinance before council? All right, seeing none, council questions or discussion? All right. Ms. Barbie, you may call the roll.
Mr. Bracken?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Ms. French?
Yes.
Ms. Ornelas?
Yes.
Mr. Snavely?
Yes.
Mayor Smith?
Yes. That ordinance is adopted, and we will move on to announcements and communications, and I'll start with Mr. Elliott.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just want to follow up on some of the comments that Mike Dreisbach made about our water treatment plant softening improvement project. So as we know, council approved the resolution authorizing the agreement with Building Crafts for the construction of this facility at their June 2nd meeting. The amount of the agreement, as Mike mentioned, including contingency, was about $24.8 million. And this contract amount will be financed by borrowing just under $24 million from the Water Supply Revolving Loan Account with the Ohio EPA and the Ohio Water Development Authority. As Mike mentioned, the blended interest rate is 2.51% for 30 years. The payment is $476,788.46, which is paid twice a year, so the total will be $953,576.92 per year. The first payment will be due January 1st, 2029, and the loan will be paid with current and increased water user fees. The project is estimated to be completed by January 1st, 2028, so I just wanted to give you that information. And also, the county auditor shared with the public in a news release about the revaluation which took place. And these 2026 values will show on your property tax bills in 2027. If you remember, when the triennial update was done in 2023, the median values went up county 37% and in Oxford 30%. So the median values for residential and agricultural property went up 19% overall in Butler County, so much less than the earlier update. And here in Oxford, we saw an average increase of 15%. And she shared in her article that Middletown saw a 30% increase in the revalue, Hamilton 27%, Trenton 22%, Monroe 15%, and Fairfield 12%. So good news for us as far as not having those huge increases that we had with the update in 2023. And that's all I have this evening, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Mr. Dreisbach?
Just a quick update on some of our summer projects. The splash pad fountain is operational again. Thanks to the Streets and Maintenance Division, they repaired that in-house with some specialized pumping equipment. They went through several vendors to get the parts necessary to fix that in-house. So thanks to them, they saved us a ton of money. Today, not to speak for Chad, but the play surface around the concrete farm animals was replaced. It was due and ready for that. And Sam may talk about the restroom later, so I'm not going to do that. The Bonham Road storm project is on time and on budget. The city's portion is 99% complete. The county is on schedule. That should reopen soon. Our High Street water main replacement project is a little bit behind schedule, but will be done well before Miami's fall semester opens. The Clarence Place sanitary sewer has been installed, so thank you for everyone's patience. We had a closure on Chestnut Street for a couple of evenings for some safety issues, but that's done, so thank you for your patience. A very exciting project, Oates Phase 5, the Collins Run Bridge has been set, and there has to be some abutment and grade work, but that's almost ready for final paving. So that project's going to be done a full construction season ahead of schedule and on budget. Hopefully on budget. Curb gutter sidewalk special assessment project is complete. That has to be done before we start our fall resurfacing program, and that is on schedule and will start August 10th, and they will be complete before fall move-in at Miami. So just a quick update on our major projects. Thank you.
That's great. Chief Jones?
Thank you. Well, after a long vacation and a road trip out west, which I'm thankful I was able to do, I came back home and then I viewed the council meeting I missed, and I was quite dismayed to see that flock cameras came up again, and that council called for legislation to end the contract. Because at the prior meeting where I presented, I thought I was supposed to take those public comments, the people who came to speak, council comments, and go back to the drawing board and bring recommendations of what we think we could, kind of downscale some of the things we do with Flock. We've had ALPR technology in Oxford for many years here, ever since I started as a police officer. We had fixed sites, we had mobile sites on our cruisers. We kept the data for a year versus the 30 days that we do on Flock now. So for me, this kind of widespread, not just in Oxford, this widespread outrage over Flock cameras is really perplexing. I don't understand it. So I just would ask the council allow me the opportunity to present the findings that we've done internally. We've already taken some steps. We've examined drastically cutting down our network to who we share this data with. Because keep in mind, our old system, we shared with people from Hamilton County and the whole region. So this is nothing new to us. Flock is different and it's improved and it's got AI. So there are certainly some concerns I get, but again, this, we've looked at increased training when it comes to ALPRs. We've looked at data security, and then improved auditing practices. Those are coming out through Flock, and we think we should start doing monthly audits. But those are taking time, and we're having those internal discussions. But I will assure you, I believe very much in the importance of police legitimacy and procedural justice, which are embodied in Sir Robert Peel, who founded modern policing. He founded the London Metropolitan Police, and in 1846, I think it was, he came out with Peel's Principles of Policing. And kind of one of the famous ones there, it's often quoted, are the police are the public and the public are the police. The police being the only members of the public who are paid to give full-time attention to duties which are incumbent upon every citizen in the interest of community welfare and existence. So I do appreciate the citizen engagement we get, even though I often disagree with folks talking about this. But police legitimacy also depends on the police being competent too. And our jobs are hard enough with the existing tools, and so many people get frustrated that we don't solve these crimes or that we are unable to help them in different situations. So solving and preventing crime is our job. So I just hope that we can continue that conversation. And there's been emails flying back and forth, and I guess I'm gonna ask for direction when it comes around from the mayor. Am I having this conversation directly with council? Am I gonna have it with PCRC? I've heard things from the public even talk about PCRC. So I also answer to a city manager. So there's a lot of external people here I'm talking to. So I'm just looking for direction. The PCRC is saying that they're gonna hold a meeting, it just came through today, I think on August 6th. But you called for legislation on August 4th. So I'll just look for that answer when it comes around to you. So thank you, that's all.
Thanks, Chief. Goodness. Anything tonight, Heidi? All right. Chief Deathridge? All right. Mr. Perry?
Uptown restroom, we're going through contractor punch lists, and it should be opening before the end of the month. The fence will be coming down, but the doors are not going to be unlocked yet. We're just going through a few more things. We want to make sure everything's working properly before we officially open it up. So
Okay.
there'll probably some kind of ribbon cutting of some kind for our restroom. It's coming along well.
Pass out rolls of TV.
Oh, Ms. Green? Ms. Barber?
Nothing, thank you.
Just to follow up on the Flock conversation, because this will come up. There is an existing contract. We can terminate it, but it would be at the end of the existing contract, which would be in February next year. All right. And then the last thing I'm going to say is something that I think everybody knows. You know, the problem with technology of any kind and changes in society, the law is always a reactionary institution. And you know, one of the challenges here is I think there are lawmakers who are not interested in addressing the implications of technology. So I question whether or not that's something that could be counted on out of Washington, D.C., or even state houses across the country.
Yeah, what I wanted to say to the chief is, I think this gives you an opportunity. And I think it's good that the PCRRC is going to be looking at it. For myself, my mind is open, and I just think we needed to have it come to a head, because all of this stuff is going on. We need to either fix it or trash it, in my opinion. So I hope that we can fix it. As far as the restroom, I'm looking forward to that coming, Sam. It's been a long time coming, and it'll be nice to see the fence down. I think it's an attractive-looking little restroom. So, you know, for a restroom, what do you want, right? That's all.
I think my only item is there is a Miles for Moon Fun 5K that's happening on Saturday, August 8th at 9 a.m. They're meeting at Moon Co-op. It's family friendly, all paces, all runner experience levels, or walkers. So I'm calling that at this meeting, and I'll mention it at our next meeting as well. That's all I got.
A couple of things. One is congratulations to the city for receiving a $250,000 federal grant and the funds will go to safety during special events. So it will support special event safety barricades in case someone either maliciously or because of a medical event or something careens and would otherwise crash into a wonderful Red Brick Friday event. So good job on that and congratulations. I also want to thank members of PACO, Ashley, Jessica, and 3 members from the Talawanda School District. There were representatives who served with PACO to review the submissions for the Amtrak train station mural. And I hope I get all these names right. There's Andrea Faulkner, and then Holly Hensel and Tom Bailey. Thank you so much. It was wonderful getting to know you and working with you over 2 meetings. So thank you. That's all for me.
It's come up previously, including last council, but I would be in favor of a moratorium on data centers. I don't want to ban them, but I do think they need conditions and caveats in terms of electricity and water usage. So if that's something you want to move forward with, I would be in support of it.
I think that it would be informative, Chief, about considering alternatives to Flock if that should come up. What would be our options in that case? Thank you for considering that, and thank you for speaking out. And I'd also like to just comment on the charter issue that we just talked about with the removal of the 3 dwelling unit prohibition. I think it will be informative to have the will of the people speak. You did mention that there were 60% of the population who voted in support of this particular item. I expect that may happen again. But it is, I think, important for us to have the will of the people reflected in this decision, as I also am concerned about affordable housing as well. But I think it's also very important to have the will of the people known. And that is one reason for my support of that particular item. That's it.
All right, let me take the big one first. So PCRRC is going to have a meeting on the 6th of August. And I think, Chief, you should will coordinate and see if they want you to present. I would imagine they probably do. We are going to postpone our Flock discussion for 1 meeting until the 2nd meeting in August on the 18th to give time for PCRRC to meet and formulate a recommendation. So the 18th will be our meeting, and we can discuss whether or not the chief presents twice, and we will come to some type of decision. So I encourage everybody to make either the PCRRC meeting on the 6th or our meeting on the 18th. All right, that being said, I wanted to thank the Oxford Walmart for inviting myself and Doug to their re-grand opening last Friday. That was a really nice event. They were very, very focused on their employees at that store, and they've got quite a few employees who have been working for them at this store for more than 25 years. It was a very nice event. And I also want to congratulate Tops. On the same day, Friday, we cut their ribbon too on their facility, which is also really, really nice. So congratulations to them. And last in the form, more of an announcement, since we've already touched on parking tonight, for better or for worse, as Miami starts their arena project on August 10th, they will be closing the south and the west lots around Cook Field, and those closures will be permanent, so that will further exacerbate parking on campus. In addition, I believe the parking lots around the former Wells Hall and Williams Hall will not be open yet for the start of school. So, fair warning about the parking headaches we are about to have for move-in day. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All around the worst
Yeah, right.
intersection in the state of Ohio. Thank you to Miami for all of their consultation that they offered, which is to say nothing.
Yes, correct.
If it helps, everybody else they consulted with, they just disagreed and went ahead anyways.
All right. See you later, alligator.
Okay.
I will not be at staff meeting next Thursday, so
That was a good
I'll have
one.
TJ come to that.
Jesus, do you even know